Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hello and welcome to mini episode 366 of Real Life Ghost Stories, and I have 3 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from June the 5th, 2024, and story number 1 comes from Kodi. When I was around 5 years old, my dad was thinking about getting a dog, so he asked me if I could think of a name, and I decided on Annabelle. My grandparents surprised us with Annabelle 3 days before Christmas. She is a red golden retriever who we still have to this day. When I was about 6 or 7, my brother and I were playing video games in the basement. I can't quite recall what we were playing, but I remember we were playing something. Annabelle had been chilling next to us at the time. During our game, we were interrupted by our dad sending us to bed. I decided to stay up and sleep on the couch while my brother opted to sleep in his room instead. I had been down on the couch for a while, watching something on the TV, when I finally decided to turn in for the night. The whole room had been dark at the time. Sometime later, I was woken up by Annabelle making creepy whimpering noises. It scared me, considering she had never made those noises before, but I just wrote it off as her having a bad dream and tried to fall back asleep. But her whimpering persisted and only got louder. It sounded like she was screaming. I called out her name, trying to check on her and shush her. I rolled over onto my back to look at her, only to find Annabelle standing on her 2 back legs staring at me, making horrifying whimpering noises with her mouth wide open and her pupils dilated. She didn't look like a dog. Understandably, I screamed bloody murder. My dad and my brother rushed to come and check on me, and when my dad turned on the light, Annabelle fell backwards like she fainted. My dad asked what was wrong, but I was too shaken up to say much, so I just told him, it was Annabelle, she was standing on her legs. My dad managed to soothe me, and my brother and I both slept in his room for the rest of the night. The next day, Annabelle seemed completely normal again, and my dad convinced me she was nothing to be afraid of. We still have Annabelle, and while she is older, I still love her. She's never really done anything similar in the years that we've had her, and she's a real sweetie. But to this day, I rarely sleep on the downstairs couch. So yeah, that was the time my dog got possessed. The cause still remains a mystery, but she hasn't done it since, and I'm grateful for that. But on the off occasion when I sleep by her, she still makes those whimpering noises. Now, we all know that dogs, and to a lesser extent cats, are meant to be the ones that protect us from all of the paranormal stuff. They alert us to the paranormal stuff. They look after us. They make sure that we are okay. They are not meant to be the ones that are getting possessed, standing on 2 legs with black eyes and screaming at us. That's not meant to happen. However, if you do own a dog, you will know that dogs can have some pretty vivid dreams. Like, my dog at home used to have dreams where he would be whimpering and growling in his sleep, and his little feet would be running frantically, chasing whatever he was trying to get in his dream. So maybe this was a case where Annabelle had a particularly horrific nightmare and ended up standing on 2 back legs, and she was making those noises because of whatever was happening in the dream, and her eyes were dilated because of whatever was happening in the dream. Maybe that was what was going on. I'm saying that because it's far more preferable to your dog just being absolutely terrifying and clearly being possessed by the spirit of some sort of skinwalker or something. And story number 2 comes from Oscar. I have a story to tell you that occurred only last night, but from my understanding, it's part of a sequence of events that has followed me for years. Around the age of 9, my parents decided to move from our home in southern France back to my grandmother's hometown in Ipswich in the UK. With 5 of us in the household and me being the only boy, I was given the attic room at the top of our house so my sisters could have the first floor bedrooms. My room consisted of a decent sized bedroom, a bathroom, and the attic door adjacent to my room. I never liked the attic growing up. It was always cold, most likely due to the lack of insulation or maybe something else. I've suffered from insomnia for many years. Sleeping was always a challenge, especially being 9 and feeling so distant from my family, kept alone in the top bedroom. One night, when I was sleeping, I awoke with no sense of time and no feeling in my body. I was in a state of shock. I couldn't move. Now I understand it was sleep paralysis. I could move my eyes around my room, scanning my surroundings. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a dark figure lurking in the shadows. It was a tall, almost transparent figure with a long, slim frame and a complete lack of facial features. I was petrified. I tried to scream to alert my parents, but no sound came out. It didn't move. It just stood there, looking at me. My ears felt like they were vibrating, signaling danger. This occurrence lasted for nearly 4 months. At least twice a week I would receive a visit from this unknown man, the Hat Man. Each night he visited me, he would get closer and closer to the foot of my bed, until one night he was standing over me, watching me. The features of this mysterious figure became more apparent. He had long, gnarly fingers that stretched out, almost attempting to reach me. I felt suffocated as he reached over my body, trying to pull my covers off. I remember crying, but no tears came out and I couldn't move my mouth. I was stuck. A few years passed and I hadn't received another visit from the Hat Man. I felt more joyful and happy. It was almost as if this unknown figure had been creating a dark, negative atmosphere that followed me throughout my childhood. I thought this sleep paralysis was behind me. I went to regular therapy for a few months and was recommended sleeping tablets, which worked for a few years. I was told to name this figure as a way to confront what I was seeing. I called it Key Man because its long fingers looked like keys. When I was 13, I received another visit. I had joined a new school and made a great group of friends that I'm still close to 6 years later. However, the thought of a new school, the fears that accompany it, and being a 13-year-old boy experiencing puberty made me feel anxious. One night, after being over at my friend's house, whose parents specialised in all things paranormal, his mom said to me just before I left, "Just be wary of your surroundings." I had no idea what she meant or how it applied to my situation. I didn't tell anyone besides my immediate family about my sleep paralysis. When I got home, I went straight to bed as it was approaching 11 p.m. and I had school the next morning. As I was sleeping, I noticed that similar unnerving feeling of being watched. It was the same feeling I had when I was 9, with the Hat Man in my room. I opened my eyes. My heart stopped, my legs clutched the bed. My arms were stiff and stuck beside me. I couldn't breathe. Above my bed, looking over me, was a crippled, mangled old woman. She had dark hair and pitch black eyes. She was floating mid-air, looking at me. Her hair was static, almost floating with her. Her mouth was open, resembling a scream that was silent yet audible in my mind. She tried to touch me many times after that night. She would move around the room, creating the same static vibrations in my ears that I heard a few years prior. It was petrifying. This was all in the past. Or so I thought. I'm now 18, doing my A-levels, and we have moved to a gorgeous new place in the country, and I couldn't be happier. Or so I thought. Last night I was calling up my girlfriend for around 3 hours before bed. I decided to tell her about my past experiences and how I had experienced these phenomena. She thought it was funny and laughed, but I felt vulnerable and exposed as it was such a traumatic time in my life. We got into an argument and I ended the call and went to bed. Around 4 a.m, I awoke completely unnerved and in desperate need of a wee. As I got up, I noticed my balcony door attached to my bedroom was wide open. Yet I was sure I had locked it and closed it before bed. I got up, locked the door and headed to the bathroom. While in the bathroom, I heard the floorboards outside creaking. It could have been one of my parents, but their bedroom was in a completely different wing of the house. "Mum?" I called out. The footsteps stopped. I quickly unlocked the door and was met with nothing. I quickly turned off the light and made my way back to my room. Before I reached my door, I stopped. The same sound of footsteps vibrated again, close and heavy. I slowly began to turn around, hoping to see one of my sisters or my parents. My heart dropped. I was in a state of flight, fight, or freeze, and I froze. In the dark hallway of my house stood a man. He was inhumanly tall, with a dark black body and a face grinning at me. My heart dropped and I screamed. This wasn't sleep paralysis. I could move and make a sound. This was real life. I ran straight into my room and shut the door. Silence. I didn't know what to do. Writing this, I still feel that same shiver of fear and the dropping of my heart. I couldn't sleep. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to get my parents, but I didn't want to leave my room. I couldn't call them as my phone was left in the bathroom. Exhausted from exams and the constant late nights revising, I passed out shortly after this. I awoke a few hours later at 7 a.m. I couldn't remember falling asleep. The house was silent. Daylight was beaming through my room. I noticed my balcony door open again. As I walked past my mirror, I noticed something on my leg. It was a red mark on my inner thigh, resembling a long handprint. I am 6 feet tall, but my hands are nowhere near that size. This only happened last night and I can't stop thinking about it today. I told my parents and they think it's just my imagination, most likely from exhaustion and stress from exams. However, it doesn't explain the very real and evident feeling I felt, the door opening and the mark and bruises on my body. I'm very scared and confused. I wish I could provide more details about why or how this happened, but I wanted to share my story and hopefully someone out there has a logical and comprehensible answer for these events. Oscar, I'm so sorry that you are going through this and it is so recent. I am going to say something which, again, is not me diagnosing anybody. This is simply information that I recently learned that may be useful to you. So there's been a trailer in the cinema at the moment for a film called Sleep. I believe it's a Korean film and it's about a couple and the man has something called parasomnia. And parasomnia includes lots of different kind of sleep disorders, so like sleepwalking, night terrors, it can be sleep paralysis, etc., right? But what I didn't realize about parasomnia is that parasomnia is a sleep disorder, but it can happen during your any stage of your sleep. So it can happen before you go to sleep, during your sleep cycle and at all the different stages of your sleep cycle, and also when you're waking up from sleep. So you can be awake and mooching around and still suffer the effects of parasomnia. And I'm not saying that to try and dismiss what has happened to you or what is happening to you. However, it might go some way to understanding what is happening to you. you know? Maybe that's the logical and comprehensible answer that you need at this moment in time. It is also important to note that exhaustion and stress are two of the things that trigger parasomniac events. And it's interesting to me that these events occurred, you know, at the age of 9 when you were in your attic bedroom and feeling very separated from your family and probably a bit freaked about being up in the attic on your own. And then later when you were 13 and you joined a new school, etc., etc., and you had a resurfacing of this sleep paralysis type events at night time. And I really do feel your frustration in telling somebody about this, telling your girlfriend about this and her finding it funny rather than being supportive, because that's difficult, especially when you open up and there's a vulnerability. And I've personally never had sleep paralysis, but having listened to so many stories of sleep paralysis on the podcast, it sounds absolutely horrendous, like completely petrifying. So of course it's going to be a bit of a struggle if you are telling somebody about it and they're not taking it seriously. Like, that's tricky. And I say this every time I talk about sleep paralysis. I find it really fascinating that people seem to see the same thing when they have sleep paralysis, whether it's the hag or whether it's the hat man. That blows my mind that people seem to see the same thing. There is a documentary, as I mentioned regularly as well, about sleep paralysis, which is called The Nightmare, and I think it's available on YouTube. Now, just a word of warning, it does lean into the possible paranormal stories of sleep paralysis. So if you think that's going to be triggering and will trigger an episode, I would not recommend watching it. But there's also a really interesting documentary, which I cannot remember the name of, which is about parasomnia and the absolutely unbelievable things that people get up to in their sleep and things that can happen to people in their sleep, which are provably the result of an exhausted or overtired brain. And I think it's important to note that regardless of what the answer is, you know what I mean, whether it is logical and comprehensible, whether it is some sort of parasomnia, whether it is something paranormal, whatever the case may be, it doesn't diminish how utterly terrifying and inexplicable it must feel.
Your wedding will be one of the happiest days of your life, and Blue Nile can help you celebrate it with a gift that'll last a lifetime. Whether you're looking for wedding bands, a gift for your partner, or an unforgettable thank you to your bridesmaids, Blue Nile offers a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Plus, expert guidance to ensure you find the perfect piece. Experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999, at BlueNile.com. BlueNile.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
And our final story today comes from Bin. I grew up in a small rural town in the snowy mountains of Australia. There wasn't much to do for teenagers, so we would tend to hang out in the local park and smoke with mates. One particular Saturday, I was hanging with a couple of girls I didn't know all that well, but well enough to share my durries and a day's adventures with. We got to chatting, and one of them mentioned that she could see spirits, auras and guardian angels, like her mother could. I was instantly intrigued. "Who's my guardian angel?" I said. She focused her gaze just above my head, squinted her eyes a little and said, "Billy? William? Bill?" Something like that. I thought for a moment before making the connection. My great-grandfather's name was William, but everyone called him Bill. By this stage, I was somewhat impressed, but I wanted more proof. "My house is just a couple of blocks away and my mum and brother are out for the day," I said. "Come and I'll show you some photos, see if you can recognise him." I entered the house through the front door, 2 friends in tow and 4-month-old puppy in my arms. Walking past the kitchen, a breakfast table and an insane budgie on the right, to a short set of about 9 stairs, we headed up to the second floor, which was the formal dining room, bathroom and my mum and partner's bedroom. It was undoubtedly a strange layout. On the second floor, there was a wall with 4 wedding photos, taken around the 1920s and the 1940s and 50s. I asked her if she could recognise Bill. She looked at them and immediately pointed to my pa. No hesitation. I was a little more impressed. We went down to the kitchen to chill and get a drink. "You know you have an old lady ghost in your house," she blurted out, just like that. I believe I responded with the likes of, "You fucking what?" This I was not prepared for. "Yeah, I can see her in the reflection of your microwave. She's got grey hair and a sort of grey mauve dress." "She's in my microwave." "Huh." Suddenly, my touched in the head budgie, Mischief, whose cage was directly behind me, started to flap around a bit. "Oh, now she's playing with your bird." Becoming less prepared by the second, I swiveled my head in time to see the little swing my bird sits on swinging by itself, with Mischief squawking from the other side of the cage. But that wasn't the worst of it. Imagine you were using your finger to push something to make it move, then stopping it at the bottom so it couldn't swing all the way through. That's what was happening, repeatedly. Get fucked. I was up like a flash and we all piss-bolted out the door, squealing like the 14-year-old girls we were. "We have to go back in and tell her to leave," my friend said. "Bugger off, I'm not going in there. You're the ghost whisperer, you go." As I stood outside my front fence, the further away the better, I watched as my 2 mates of the day walked cautiously through the front door, peeking into the bedrooms, around corners, into the living room and kitchen, before finally heading upstairs to the second floor. Not 10 seconds later, they came flying down the stairs, screaming hysterically, "There's knives! Oh my God, there's knives up there!" What the fuck? I couldn't quite comprehend at first. Of course there are knives, I thought. It's the dining room. "What knives? What do you mean?" I said. "You have to go and look. There are knives on the table." Curiosity piqued, I slowly walked inside, following their footsteps from only moments ago. As I got to the top of the stairs, I craned my neck, and there they were. 2 of the largest knives we owned, in the centre of the table, with their blades crossed to form an X. Those knives lived in the kitchen drawer downstairs. What the fuck were they doing up here? How did they get up here? My mum was pretty fastidious about putting things back where they belonged, and my brother and I wouldn't have a need to even use them. More to the point, they weren't there when we came up to look at the wedding photos not 10 minutes ago. So, in true RLGS style, we noped the fuck out of there. While we were out the front of the house, holy shitting and what the fucking ourselves, I had a sudden realisation that I'd left my 4-month-old puppy inside. Shit. After a quick internal debate over whether I really needed a puppy or if she'd make good ghost food, I decided she was too cute and we had to go back. Off we went. Again. We could see her near the base of the stairs, and it kind of looked like she was sitting up. Not like normal though. She was propped up on her bum with her front legs out, and her fur was pushed up, like someone was trying to pick her up. "Oh my God," cried my friend as she ran to pick up the puppy. After that we ran out for good, slamming the doors behind us. I told my mum and her partner about what happened, but they didn't believe me. As I was telling my mum what happened that night, I was standing by the birdcage, going all teenage hysterical, and then, after she was in the microwave, she was over here and she was playing with Mischief, and then she was playing with this... I stopped dead in my tracks. Tied into a large bunch of knots on top of the swing was a piece of thick grey mauve coloured thread, and I cut that sucker off quicker than you can say crazy old ghost chick. It wasn't until we had moved to another house that Mum's partner told us a story about when he woke up one night during a storm while living there. On the top floor of the house, at one end of the room, was a set of stable-type doors. They just opened into nothing. No veranda, no deck. Just a 3-meter drop to the next level. The night of the storm, the doors were blowing around. Open, closed, bang, bang, bang. Bloody kids. Assuming we hadn't latched the doors properly, he got up to lock them. Listening to them bang and crash, he traipsed his way up the winding staircase to find the doors locked, all 3 bolts sealed up tight. Nope. One more thing happened to me living at that house. I was laying in bed very early one morning, awoken by something. I strained my ears. A bell? I could hear a bell jingling. Where do I have a bell? Then it hit me. I had a jester clown doll that my dad had given me. It had friggin' bells on its hat. Shit, what do I do? Fuck off! I screamed at it and it instantly ceased. I think that scared me more than the bell itself. When I finally came out from under the doona, I went over and jingled one of the bells. And yep, that was the sound. Oh God, no. Jingly jangly jester toy at the end of your bed? Absolutely not. And I'm not somebody who worries about dolls or toys. They don't freak me out, but that's a no from me. I will say I did have to look up some of the Australian slang in this story. So just so you know, durries are cigarettes, Australian slang for cigarettes, and doona is Australian slang for duvet, I believe. And going back to the beginning, it is weird that you meet this girl and she's like, oh, you've got a guardian angel and his name is Bill and it's your great grandfather, and then she's able to pick it out from a picture. Like she's able to pick him out and go, yeah, that's him. And because it's a picture of him getting married, it's not like she's looking at, you know, a random picture of an old guy and being like, I'm going to deduce that that's him, you know? I would love to know if anything weird happened in your house beforehand that you didn't even consider could have been weird or paranormal. But it does seem like whatever was in the house at this time, do you know what I mean? Playing with the budgie, moving the knives, that kind of thing. It's very attention seeking, right? It's very much like, yes, I am here. I want to show you that I'm here, and I'm going to do that in a way that is as clear as possible. I mean, knives, that's pretty clear, right? That's a pretty much a yes, I am here, hello kind of sitch, right? And I just find it fascinating that afterwards there was that mauve grey thread that was on the swing for the bird. That's wild. And I wonder if for ages this ghost was trying to get your attention, and then all of a sudden this girl comes in and there's lots of teenage energy in the house, and the ghost is finally like, haha, fuck it, I can do all the things that I need to do to get these people's attention and let them know that I'm here. God, do you remember the days of being a teenager when you would just make friends with people for a day? Like, wasn't that amazing? Like, what a cool time of life. Except for all the ways that being a teenager was also absolutely hideous. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Kodi, Oscar and Bin for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from June the 5th, 2024. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.